Okay, everyone, we're going to start the tour now. Sorry that it has to be produced in this way, but we're hybrid. There's people watching online as well on Facebook and YouTube. As always, we're very used to this by now, right? So I'm going to be myself, Lucy Detterhendler, the curator of the Art Gallery of Southwestern Manitoba, as well as the camera person who's going to be following everybody around, giving the viewers at home some details. And we have George behind the computer in a producer role. And for everybody watching from home, you can interact with us, ask questions, comment through the comment section of whatever platform you're joining us from. So, and then we'll be able to read those out to everybody. We are on Treaty 2 territory, which is the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as the traditionally shared territories of the Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, Dene, and Anishinaabe peoples. Today, it's always so hard to rush. So I said last night, we think that this is a record breaker. This has 173 pieces in it. I'm going to go ahead and speed through all the works that don't have artists present. I don't know all of you, so be sure to point out when we go by your work, okay? Just in case we miss it. So we're just here at the beginning. I think everybody's going to go around the members show in pretty much the same way. I love this entry because it has some of the most long-standing members of the AGSM family, as well as some brand new submissions. For example, Marcel Sweep and Carolyn Kirkup, who are here for their first time in the member show. So let's move along. If we can go to this section here to have a peek. And again, I'm doing some camera work too. Is there anybody here with any work in this section? I don't think so. Good. Okay. And here again, I don't think so. Yes? Oh, Jean-David, yes, of course. Okay. So here we have 3 pieces by Jean-David. I think this is your second time submitting to the member show, right?
Hi everybody. It's the second time for the show, and thanks for the invitation from the gallery. And see that all my painting is more symbolized and different value color to show the story of Middle Age and also the modern art. As the first is a sacred lamb, it represents more the Middle Age and the story of faith that all people have been in a corner of their life. The second is more modern and more fluorescent as painting and value color.
We're talking about this one on the top?
The second one, yeah. The rising sun. It means also as a Renaissance painting. And the third one down is more attached to the province of Manitoba. Okay, as its border corner, its border life. And you can see the flag and the different color of the blue sky that we hold around the province. Thank you.
These are larger than what I know you.
Yes, it's more. The whole piece is more larger and.
Including the figures, for example.
Exactly.
Than you painted before.
Yeah, and improving more different kind of art technique, also.
And these are from this year. These are very recent.
Yeah, it's just recent work from this year and for this project, for this show, especially. I make it for the show especially.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in this section? Yes, we point to somebody out back there? No, it's you. Oh, okay. 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 So we will loop back and look at everything if we want to at a later time. But I want to make sure that everybody can talk as much as they want to talk. I know that we're about to come on to Doug Fraser's Leapin' Lads. You want to come join us here? We're a little understaffed today.
Multitasking,
Yeah.
one thing at a time.
Yeah. Okay, so Leapin' Lads. I don't think I've seen this one before.
Probably not, no. This is from a moment along the Athabasca River on a canoe trip that we did between Jasper and Hinton some years ago. And these young men, the river is fairly cold. It has its headwaters in the glacier. So this is August, it's very cold. And they dared each other to jump in. So this is one of those moments where you just happen to catch it at the right time, right? So this is a piece that has just recently been completed, but it's been on the canvas for some years. Right? Oh, yeah.
What does that mean for your process, being on the canvas?
It just means that I was doing other things in life.
I see. Well, I love this story because you can see the coldness of the mountains and the warmth of that sun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And these two mountains are actually, this is called Bedson Ridge, and the other mountain is likely, I think probably Roche Ronde. So on the map, we'll see roughly where it's at.
Okay. Yeah. And who are these people?
There are four guys whose names I don't remember. It's been that long.
It's just a lucky photo, guys. Yeah.
It's a lucky photo.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, this is a technique that I've used in many of my paintings, multiple glazes for the mountains and sky, and this. So that's also why it takes a bit of time, multiple glazes with, transparent colors.
Yeah, yeah, and you're working in acrylic, right?
This is acrylic.
So this is a classic technique for oil paint that you don't see that much in
Right.
acrylic. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can really see the effect that it has when you get close to the.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got almost a watercolor or oil painting
Little
kind
bit
of quality
that,
to it. Yeah. Yeah.
And some direct painting, of course, for the image, for the figures. Right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, to give it that the textural difference. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I put you right next to these digital paintings for a real contrast, right? And the difference of you can do the same thing, but it's just a totally different process, right? Yeah. Okay, on to Doug number 2. With your skies and your landscapes. This is Doug Dirksen with 2 Souris River. I'm going to adjust this. I'm sick of it. So tell us.
We're taken along the Souris River. That's one of the connections. The other connection is that this one was taken standing. There's a bit of a cut bank or a cliff here. So I was standing here looking east. As it happens, every August, the sun rises straight along the river. And usually in August, there's all kinds of mist and fog along here. So I try and get out here in August as much as I can. This was 4 individual photographs that I put together, did sort of a panorama. And the reason for that is usually otters in the river. So I had my big long lens waiting for the otters to come along. I got to this place, I'm precariously standing on the side of the bank. It's slippery, I didn't want to change lenses. So I just did the 4, and after I was finished, I thought, I should do this right. So I changed the lens and shot it, but this ended up being by far the better image. And with the long lens, it compresses the view, and so you get much more definition in it. So
That's remarkable. You can't see any seams at all.
no, the Photoshop was great.
Did you use the AI thing?
I don't know if they use AI to do that, but I have used some of the AI.
I've never done it, but it's
film.
amazing now.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So that's that one taken in August. This is about a month later in September, just a little bit up the river. So, as most of you will remember from public school, the North Star stays in the one place and the Earth turns. So the Earth's turning this way, it makes the stars look like they're going this way. And in film days, you would just open your camera up for 2 hours and it would take a picture. The film would go black and the light would show. But in digital days, you can't do that. So this is a composite of 250 individual photographs, 15 seconds long each. So there's like little beads on a string, and the software sort of joins up the beads out the periphery, and obviously near the middle it's not. And then the foreground, it's a separate photo, although it's exactly the same place, but it's a minute and a half, so I can get some light coming across the river. So
The result is really like an immortal kind of light that you've gotten, that reflection that you achieved with, you said, 90-second
yeah,
opening?
yeah, and it's a moonless night, and all of this is coming from starlight, and so it's kind of an interesting color.
Yeah, exactly. It seems otherworldly or hyper-worldly,
Yeah.
cosmological somehow.
Yeah, that whole field is
Yeah,
that way.
yeah.
And that's what's interesting. So we don't see this, and it's not faked. It's there. If you stand there, you can see the dipper sort of turning around the North Star.
Right.
But it happens.
We've talked a lot about how part of your practice is the hike out there, right? So this is early in the morning and late at night, and it's kind of an environmental art practice, right? The traveling. And it's funny to talk about these two where you're also just hunched over your computer, right?
Yeah, that's the real irony of it. I absolutely love being out in natural places, beautiful wild light. That's my goal. And to do this, I didn't have to sit there and do the typing, but I won't bore you with the details, but to do the whole process that I went through took about 3 hours of actual computer running. And I've got a really fast computer. So yeah, it's kind of the irony that this is where I want to live, but I end up inside.
Well, your brain can live there while your
yeah.
body is stuck in
Exactly.
in the posture, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions for Doug? No? Oh, this is digital, right? We have a question from the audience.
Yeah, so this is taken with digital camera, and I don't know there's much else to say. I mean,
Yeah.
I've done both with film in the past, but there's something really cool about digital that you just can't do with film from my point of view.
Maybe the question asker is one of those people who cares about the actual model of camera and everything. I don't know.
I've used a lot of different kinds of
A lot of
cameras.
different
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, these are Nikon mirrorless cameras.
And printed on canvas to give it that nice kind of half matte, half gloss.
And the other thing, if you're interested in the technical side from a camera point of view, this camera is particularly good at low light. Not all cameras are. So this sits on a tripod, for example. This one, I left the camera sitting there for 2 hours while it was taking pictures.
Yeah.
And then went and sat by a fire to warm up.
Okay, great. Any questions for Doug? Elaine? Hi. We have 2 drawings. This is your second time in the members show. I thank you so much for coming this time. Again.
So this top picture actually is a drawing from the farm that I grew up on, which happens to not be far from these pictures here that Doug took.
It's instinctual, but sometimes magic happens.
It's funny, actually. So this is actually a stunning colored pencil, and this is a picture of a truck that my grandfather used to own, and it was parked on the farm for years. I've never seen it running, and then the barn that we grew up with. So it's just a good memory.
Yeah.
And probably one of my brothers or sisters will actually end up with this picture. So.
I hope somebody who recognizes it, but I love the softness that you can only really get with that colored pencil because it takes so long.
It does.
Right?
Yeah.
Every little bit of mark making.
And layering and layering,
Yeah, and also what you've done is create this kind of memory vignette with all of the shading around
Exactly.
the outside. Yeah.
Exactly. And then this drawing down here, I love mostly working with just pencil. And Clydesdales are one of my favorites. We happened to be driving along the gravel road one day, and we saw these 7 horses lined up perfectly. I had to do it. I
Yeah.
just had to take the picture and recreate it.
Yeah. And this one's called Best Friends.
That one's called Best
Best Friends.
Yeah.
I remember I was driving up to go horseback riding in Montana once, and it was so early that all the horses were still asleep, and it was the creepiest thing. I had no idea. They actually just sleep standing up, just still, and in a row like this. Yeah, but these guys look very substantial, right?
Yeah.
The forming that you've done with that pencil, yeah?
They were aware that we were there, but so they're all awake. But it was I find it interesting that none of them are actually eating.
Yeah.
But all their heads are down.
Yeah, yeah. So when you say that you prefer just graphite instead of colored pencil, is there a reason for that?
I think I feel like I have more control of light and dark and
Yeah. When you don't have to worry about color, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the shading, I've found a technique with shading that I just can't really recreate with colored pencil.
And how long have you been doing?
Oh, forever.
Forever.
Since I was a little girl.
Good.
Yeah.
Great. I'm happy you're still doing it. Any questions for Elaine? Okay. Just clipping along. Now, I know we have Irene here, but I'm afraid. Oh, Nova, yes, please. Start with you, come on.
Sure.
So we have pre-abstracted landscapes from you, yes.
Yeah. So I work from photos usually, and then I just kind of play around. It's more of an experimentation in my studio, and just playing around, and it's more about what I'm doing, less about what comes out for me. So this was there's a subdivision that's happened across the street from my house, so this was my regular view. And then last summer it all got flipped and turned, and there's houses going in, and so this was kind of my meditations on that division of where, and I was also going through a marital separation of tattoos, so they kind of all came together.
Yes. This is called The Division.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the middle one, is totally kind of abstract. I mean, I'm drawn to landscapes and horizon lines and all the different types of lines that cross our landscapes, and how they kind of interfere or enhance our perspective and perceptions of our world. And so, this was just sort of my experiment on thinking about all those types of lines that are crisscrossing, whether we see them or not, and how they're affecting what we see.
And because this is on a black wall, I don't know if everybody can tell, but there's actually a gash in the canvas.
Yeah, so that I've done that with paper in the past, where I've cut things out and then reused the pieces. And because of kind of the format of this and the shape, the size, and it's kind of, to me, like more of an art object than a two-dimensional piece. But I did really like, I don't know really what compelled me to just take the knife to that. But I do like that depth, that black that you can't get with paint, right? And it's going right in behind, and then used the cutout and reattached it there and added some fabric. I do quite a bit of fabric work as well, so it often creeps into my paintings.
Yeah, I love this idea. I also know you as an art educator of young people, so this idea of the play and experimentation, I think, really comes out there, even though these are very adult and serious and almost, I don't want to say violent in this case, but like they're aggressive almost, right? Yeah. And then also, these are all three on different materials, right?
Yeah, so this is just like regular canvas. That one's a thicker canvas, and then this one's a wood panel.
Yeah. Which I think gives such great texture. Talk to us about winter melt here.
So that was, there had been a melt happen. We had quite a bit of snow. And so the windows, I have these low windows in my living room, and they were just iced up. These giant icicles were coming down, and it was almost like jail bars, right? Like we felt really closed in. There was snow, just the whole house was engulfed in snow and ice. And there was this really beautiful sunset taking place, and the light was coming through the icicles. So I captured it with a photo, and then I decided to just experiment with those images on a panel. And I do like to incorporate lots of metallic paints in. So there is the metallic, although what I've noticed about metallic is that it works really well in natural light settings, but not so much with gallery light.
The opposite
settings.
of natural light.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my draw to metallics is it doesn't come across in a gallery
Well, you
setting.
can kind of.
Is that it changes throughout the day as the light
Yeah.
is shifting around the room. Then you're as you walk in and look, your painting is changing.
Yeah, and you've done this thing again of like what you did with the cutout of the kind of inversion, right?
Yeah. So it was 2 separate photos, I think, of like kind of different time, like maybe 5 minutes later. Yeah, so that's something that I've been experimenting with too. Is like I work with the photos, but sometimes I like to collage them or flip them or cut them up and work with them in different ways. So this was, one was flipped one way and one was flipped the other.
Yeah. Any questions for Nova? Okay. Straight to Irene. Can you pass the little fuzzy right here in purple? Yeah. Okay. Set that up. Irene, we have 3 landscapes from you.
Yes. All farm related. I lived out in the country for many years, so they're all my neighbors' far views from the windows. The red one is Albert's farm. My husband worked there. And that's an early morning. And the sky wasn't quite that red, but I love the red colors.
Yeah.
It's more of an abstract. This is my tree out my front window, which stood with bold prairie and nothing around it, but bold and big. And it was like the Gone with the Wind tree. I loved looking at it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it fell over about a year later. But this is my friend Jason's field. And I just love the open space and the moody clouds. I'm a prairie girl. Always have been. Couldn't stand living in Toronto.
So these are all personal stories to you. Is there something that draws you to the moment that you're trying to capture? Is there something about the morning here and the winter here?
It's the skies, for sure. The skies. I like the landscape, but the sky captivates me.
Yeah. And you've actually done something, so Jean-David, if you get close to his work, he works in oil, but similar to what Doug's done with the acrylic, with this multiple layering where there's all this motion underneath the top layer. Is that something that comes through experimentation, or is it an intentional, is it a technique that you're working on the same way?
A little bit of both. Sometimes it doesn't work out the way I want, and I'll set it aside for a couple hours, let it dry, and then when I go to do over it, you end up getting a layered effect. Sometimes it's just easy to do. That one was very intuitive.
Yeah. And you can see, if any of you want to come closer afterwards, there's these kind of cutouts in, I think this is the sun peeking through, right? That are almost like drips. So there's a kind of oppressive heat to this.
Right.
Yeah. Any questions for Irene? No? Great. Anything else?
No.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who's the next person we're going to hit? I don't know. Yes, we'll do that at the end. Yes, great. That's a great idea. Okay, let's go to Erin. I've been walking this gallery in a spiral. That's why we keep going around the end, and we end up in the middle, but we'll back up here. Okay, Erin, we have 3 that you've been divided.
This one first?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a twist on what I have been doing for the last year. I had, there's fabric in the background of this. It's more mixed media. There's fabric in the background of this and some paper.
Oh, real fabric.
So this is actually fabric, and then this is paper. And what I wanted to do was, I wanted to desaturate the subject and put the color into the background, which I think is what I've achieved with this. And using the same, I was really fascinated by using the same kind of subject matter for the background and the foreground. Was feeling a little bit contrarian and ironic, I guess. But the draw back to fabric comes from the year that I've had with my mom. My mom's had some health struggles this year, And she's a quilter, has been as long as there's always been fabric flying in my house growing up, and so I leaned back into that when I started playing with fabric, and that's what I got with this one and the 2 portraits. That I
Yeah, which are more what I think of you as doing, but maybe it's because you do so many kind of celebrity portraits and things like this. So let's look at these. But I do want to point out to everybody, my favorite thing about this bouquet is the bird of paradise in the top, because we know so well that form by its color. So it becomes really desaturated as soon as you kind of clock that bird of paradise there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, have you seen the meme of the person always picturing it as the head of the bird with like this really stupid instead of a beautiful flying
No,
bird? It's
but I
very
think you should
funny.
post that.
And now I'll put it in the comments. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so now you have these portraits.
Yeah, same technique was used here. Without the paper, this is just fabric and paint, acrylic. So I covered the canvas with fabric and then painted the portrait over top of that. And this was the first in a series that I did like this. And I did these before I did the still life. So I laid the fabric down with the intention of her clothing being the flamingo print of the fabric.
Right, right. And you can really see how you're honing this technique because the details are such a different treatment. I think it's a really effective way to add like a 3rd and 4th layer, which is what you've achieved with the bouquet, right?
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you for noticing that. That's a paint pen. I used the paint pen for
Yeah.
finer details.
Yeah.
And then again with this one, I used the paint pen to define the curls in her hair.
Yeah.
That's fabric laid down. It's actually the same fabric that you find in the background of the floral.
And you do have a technique that you've honed. So I know that you also teach it. You do paint nights and things. And
Just started doing that. Yeah.
oh yeah, okay. But in order to really break down images into, I don't want to say paint by numbers, but into their constituent
essentially, yeah.
forms, right? Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I take a photograph. It starts digital, my process. So I take a photograph and I reduce it to anywhere between 5 and 7, sometimes 8 values of black. And I print it out as like a topographical map. And then I transfer the large chunks of the different values onto my canvas and paint that from there. And then once I get all the big stuff blocked in, I go in and do the finer details.
Yeah.
But it's a really great technique I found because, as you know, I came to art in therapy, and it has been a really good technique for me to learn how to look at a human face and not judge the components of that human face, because I'm not painting eyes and noses and mouths. I'm
Right,
just painting.
right. You're painting this triangle, this wiggly bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, fabulous. I love that. And I mean, almost more complicated when you get into non-human forms because
It's a struggle. Yeah.
yeah, the
It's
process
so
of
much-
recognition is so much slower
Yeah.
without a face,
Very
right?
much so.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Any questions for Erin? Everybody's so quiet. Kurt, part 1.
Okay.
Kurt, part 1.
Right. Oh, I get to hold the little toupee.
I think of them as triples.
Little tribbles.
Yeah.
Oh, even better. I never saw black tribbles, but okay.
It's true,
Yeah.
but there were many. I'm sure eventually.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Here be dragons.
Cue the dragons. I've been involved in a year-long project which is very direct and straightforward, and I'm kind of illustrating something. And so I wanted a break. And so the member show coming up provided me with a break. And one of the nights of the painting class that I'm privileged to teach, a great group of people, I started the painting just from a photograph I'd taken from the green spot a couple years ago, I think. And I roughed it all in, and then I let it sit for a while. And then I looked at the photograph for kind of the middle section, and then I threw away the photograph because I wanted to more do my own thing. And the more I paint, I guess it's getting on to many years now, but the more I paint, the more I'm enjoying the abstract qualities of the color and the shape. So I think the direction is it's going to dissolve more and more into shape and not necessarily see something. And I guess the impetus for this, the charge for this, is this reflective shape coming down from the skylight above. And it makes it kind of hard to read right off the bat. So the whole thing becomes more contemplative, which was, again, a nice contrast from the very straightforward illustration work that I was doing, which is like, here's what it is, please be clear at what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah.
And this one's like, I'm not sure what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, but that's interesting that it's a green spot because exactly what makes it a little bit difficult to read is that artificial light, that it's just a natural scene that something's gone wrong with, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you that there's a little space in here, probably artificially created space, and it was so hard for me not to put a little human being in there or something. But I'm going to leave it for now.
Yeah. And that's a dragon.
And here be dragons. I haven't said which ones are the dragons. For you, those are the dragons. Who knows?
You don't know this is a hobby of mine.
Okay.
Locating,
Dragons are a hobby?
locating the sea monsters specifically.
Locating sea monsters. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay. The dragons could be anywhere, but that might be a red herring or orange goldfish.
Orange
Anyway.
goldfish, very big one. Questions for Kurt, part one? Because he has another painting to show him. Yeah.
I wait for the sequel. I want to
Yeah.
see the sequel.
You might be the next person,
hope
actually,
it's
unless
better.
we have somebody
Okay.
coming. No? Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And thanks very much for pointing out that you have been reducing into form, because that's exactly why you're here in the Aaron category as well. Those shapes, right? Those outlines and shapes. Right. Again, you'll have to introduce yourself if I'm missing your artwork. All right, we might be going straight to Kurt part two. Okay.
Oh no, here comes the sequel.
Okay, now for something completely different.
For something completely different or the same again. Probably the most affecting art experience I've ever had has been being in the Met, standing in front of Van Goghs, actual live Van Goghs, and the physicality of the paint. When Brother Theo is paying for the paint, he just goes crazy on it, and it just fills it. So I've always been trying to push to use more paint. So this is the upper limit of how much paint I can use and still feel like, oh, okay. So,
Is it because of money?
oh, it's absolutely because of money. I'm a very frugal person at heart.
Same experience all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, no.
Oh, no, just enough.
Yeah.
But it energizes the painting in a way that I wish I could be more wasteful or whatever, and I'd have more energy at it, because I liked the fact that this acrylic stayed wet as long as it did and allowed me to smear things around. Again, it's kind of reducing to form. So yeah, it looks like a tomato, but really it's a big red circle with a green star in it, right? So it's got the abstraction that I'm kind of leaning to, and it was a much needed energizer on a kind of a slow week. It's like, okay, big red circle, lots of orange, and just do it, right? It's just the physicality of it, just doing it.
Well, that's it. When you have these streaks that you're allowed to have the huge amount of paint,
Yeah.
you can see exactly what your arm was doing.
Right.
None of this little.
Yeah, or fussiness, or trying to make it look real, because I've been bound to that for a long time. Just, I've got to get it like it looks. And now, no, you know what? I'm going to be satisfied with the energy of doing the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I could put some little blue highlights over here, and I could smooth this out
Like
a little
you're
more.
supposed to.
Like you're supposed to, yeah. And so I got away from being supposed to, and I enjoyed it. I'm actually hoping this will come back home. I'm looking forward to it.
We can write out the sale price if you want. Anyway,
All right.
we'll place it.
Questions, thoughts?
Tomatoes.
You know what? They're all waiting to get the chance to talk about their work too.
I know.
Because this is exciting.
It is exciting, and I don't even know what time we're at because I'm doing too many things at once.
Let's check your timing. You are
36.
1:32.
Yeah.
1:36.
All right. Jan, we missed Jan. Jan's too shy. We got to backtrack, everybody.
Oh, sorry.
In the back of the room. Of course, of course. We all came here for a little walk, didn't we? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to fix this because it's bothering me.
I admire your ability to multitask.
Oh, wait till you see it. You don't know.
That is the opposite of me. I can't talk and ride a bicycle.
Jan Jenkins. Here we are. with
Hello,
three
hello.
vinyl cuts on handmade paper.
Yes, I had so much fun exploring handmade paper. Some of this is made actually with the empty tea bags, my paper, and I ended up getting a community of friends involved in collecting organics for me to put into the paper. So that was like an adventure all on its own, and I have stacks of bins waiting at home to actually create more paper. And so these lino cuts, some of the designs I actually did with the Artist Heart Friends when we were at the Green Spot on Saturdays, and then carved them at home, and then put them on the paper. And I'm just thrilled how the ink responded to the handmade paper. I don't think I could get this type of saturation on any other kind of paper. It was a perfect marriage. So I'm really pleased with how they turned out. And this is all Manitoba edible, herbal, and medicinal plants. And part of a project that I did that was on show at the gallery earlier this year in response to a book that I read. And so there's bees incorporated as well, part of beekeeping. Along with the Manitoba forageable plants.
So these are themes, I remember from the show, from the exhibition Stimulus Response, it's about sustainability and survivalism. Sustenance living. And I love this idea, it was called On the Ground, the series that started.
Yes.
Because you were just constantly looking at what was available.
Top down, yes.
I love the association between looking down and collecting.
Yes.
This is something that I think a lot of us can relate to. I certainly can't walk along a beach
No.
with my head up.
Yeah,
right?
my pockets
Yeah.
get filled with rocks pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
that idea of collecting things that then go into the material of the art
Yes.
as opposed to
Yeah.
just the mark making.
and rather than collecting live things, I'm collecting like just knowledge and putting it into the art and it's fun doing the design work, and the carving is very meditative as long as you keep your fingers out of the way, right? So, yeah.
Fabulous. Any
Okay.
questions for Jan? Doug?
I have a question for, go, no, go ahead.
You said that you used tea bags in there, right, in making the paper?
Yes.
Do you know what fiber is in the tea bags? Do you know what the
No,
origin of that is? Just
No, I
curious.
don't. A majority of it was like Tetley tea bags and English breakfast tea bags. So, but it's obviously the paper has to be very strong to survive,
Right.
the dipping and all of that. So,
Fairly long fibers, right?
yeah.
That's what you need.
Yes, and then there's some additives of like the recycled paper, and for example, I've been collecting bubble or chewing gum wrappers because the beautiful foil color. My next batch I want to include chewing gum wrappers. So see how it turns out.
So that's just basically a bunch of paper and you dip it in ink to give it like a texture type?
What I've done is I've handmade the paper by shredding it and soaking it and blending it and then laying it out flat with a bunch of different things in it. And then as far as the designs, I took a piece of lino very similar to this commercial flooring and carved designs into it. And then I used a roller and inked it. And wherever I'd carved wouldn't print, and wherever I didn't carve, that was where the ink lay. And then I put the paper over top. And I'm very fortunate, I have a rolling press at home, so then I hand rolled it through the press to transfer the image from the lino onto the paper.
And you can see a little bit of embossing too.
And there's a bit of embossing, yes, from the rolling through the press, yeah. So.
Oil-based ink, water-based ink?
This happens to be water-based ink. It's Caligo Safe Wash ink, and I have used oil-based as well. And there's environmentally friendly ways of cleaning that process up as well. So I like the fact that you rarely waste any ink when you're doing lino cut. Yeah. So.
Kurt.
Agatha Dick, any experience with her work?
No,
Okay.
no. I'll have to look her up.
Yes.
Thank you.
I think we have one in the back vault there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Beautiful stuff. Thank you, Jan. All right. I'm trying to remember in my brain what's coming up. Jan is next. Yes. Your turn. Hold on to that.
Does it matter how you hold it?
Nope.
Okay.
Okay. So, Jan Brankovic with some pastel drawings.
I would call them pastel paintings
Pastel paintings, good.
because according to all knowledge of art techniques, pastel doesn't matter if it was chalk pastel or oil pastel eventually was always considered as painting. And we should say thank you to Napoleon Bonaparte in France, who issued a law that in pastel, in chalk pastels, you were not allowed to use toxic pigments because artists were dying from inhaling them. And oil pastels use oil as a base, linseed oil, and it's totally different medium than chalk pastel. I started my art career a long time ago, 75 years ago, in 1947, and I started my career on a very high level. My work was selected for international exhibition of children's art in Japan. One of those works, never got it back, I don't know what happened, probably went in a garbage. And from then on, my grandmother encouraged me to draw and paint and do all kinds of things. I did that for a number of years. Then I gave it up because I decided I want to be a poet. So in the 60s, I started writing poetry. I was published in Poland, translated in Germany, published there. And I wrote poetry. On the side, I was painting too. But I wrote poetry till 1965 when I came to Canada from Europe. And after writing one poem, I said, who the hell is going to read that? I wrote in Polish. There was a very small Polish community here. So I said, no, I better go back to art. So in 65, I went back to art. I started with oil paintings, painting lots of abstractions, portraits and stuff like that. Then I started teaching art. The other day, Kurt reminded me he was substituting for me when I got sick or something like that, and we did have quite an experience. Kevin was my student. Asked him about placing him under the table and asking him to bark. Many crazy things did happen, but that's what art is all about. You live in a visual world. You observe what is happening in the world. You analyze this. Your mind constantly works developing images based on the experiences you gain, and then you go and experiment. People say, oh, these are simple works. Would you believe the simplest one with this color took me 20 hours to do. I don't use any tools, just pastel sticks and my fingers. After finishing work, I need a couple of days of rest, so my fingers will fix themselves. Some of the works are even more than 25 hours of work, so it's a very thing. but my mind works constantly. I never sit in front of blank paper and say, what am I going to do today? When I go to my studio and I have stretched piece of paper, I knew exactly what I want to do because my images are in my head. And I wouldn't want to be a neurosurgeon to analyze my brain because I don't have brain there, I have just images. Very strange images too. As you work with pastels, there are certain techniques that are more traditional, but I am an inventor, and I invented, for instance, those textures on pastels. They look very complicated, but after I invented that technique, it's very easy, very simple, very fast.
And you don't use particularly fancy pastels. You use the classroom pastels, right?
Oil pastels, yeah.
But just the cheap ones that you can get. You don't get the...
Just children kind.
Yeah.
I don't use any sophisticated mediums because there's no need. Children pastels are very good. I did chalk pastels for a while. I didn't like that much. I prefer oil pastel. They're more permanent and you can manipulate colors over colors without overblending and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I brought, if somebody wants to look, I have here folder photocopies of my work going back to 2019. They're all in pastels. So if you want to look,
Yeah, maybe after in the lobby, we'll gather around. Yeah.
What else?
Are there any questions in the meantime for Jan?
Jan, what's the inspiration? Are
What's
they
the
just
inspiration?
images, or are they motivated by something, by a feeling?
Most of the images are dealing with human figures, interaction, family, conflict, and so on. But there are some, and you can see them here, that are based on pure nature, like forests, sunsets, stars. So
We have a question online as well. George, Holler.
It's less a question so much as a comment, but I thought Jan would love this. So it's from Lisa Murray. She says she remembers the F grades she received at Oxford from you. Somehow those Fs turned into As.
thank you.
You've touched a lot of artists in Brandon, I think.
I taught many artists in Brandon. I was teaching in junior high, senior high, and about 25 years at university. So all levels, I enjoy everyone. I like working with people. I'm a conflicted person. So some people pretend that they hate me, but years later they come back to me and say, oh, you were great.
Yeah, so it is to be a teacher, right?
I'm still teaching. I'm 82 years old and I'm still teaching. I have one student privately, Dr. Decter is my student, and we work every Wednesday night. We struggle.
Anybody can go on to YouTube and watch a documentary that we did of his process. I think 2 years ago we did that.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much. We want to keep clipping along, and we will gather in the lobby afterwards to look through. I'm excited to see your old work. I know Becky is here newly. Let's look at Becky's Inktober. We'll be quick.
You just talk.
That's why I put it there, just for you. So Becky Chin, as we walked by, I said there's a lot of people who have been members with us for a long, long time. Would you hold that for me? Thank you. And you're one of those people. You've been part of our community for a long time. Yeah. And I know that you do Inktober every October. I think of your
Yes.
primary medium as watercolor and ink.
I am watercolors. People know me as a plein airist, and so when I retired, I discovered this thing through a friend about Inktober, which means you're given a single word for each day of the month of October. And when I first heard of it, I said, that's totally impossible. But I dived in, and this is my 6th year. So I enjoy getting a single word and creating a visual because I get to play. And I think that's what I enjoy about art, is being playful.
Yeah.
So
this toad is very playful. It's
simply,
character.
it's
Yeah.
toad.
Toad.
So that's what it is. And I never did a toad, so I finally did a toad.
Yeah.
And this was Castle. And of course, this one is a memory because 40 years ago, I was in Japan for the International Suzuki Conference, which is my profession. And I was in this castle. So I thought I'd revisit it 40 years later. I realized this is the 40th year that we had a month in Japan. My husband and I, we were fanatics of this method at one point. And so anyway, I was in this castle, and the funny thing is I didn't know it closed at 4 o'clock. So pitch black. I had to find my way down these huge steps to the front door. So anyway, just playful.
So this has, you created this from a memory or from photos?
Yeah, I look up photos and look at my
Like
old
reference.
photos and kind of, reference. I need reference photos. I'm not a memory painter. Maybe I am, I don't know.
And then this is a memory of a plein air.
This one?
No, this says memories too, but it looks like a plein air
This
painting.
is a memory because when I was in grade school, we had a field trip, and we went to the museum, and then we went to Golden Gate Park, and the teacher asked the class if anybody wanted paper and pencil to draw. So I was the only one that got a piece of paper and started to draw this scene. And I loved sitting there and drawing the little duckies in the pond. This is Stowe Lake, and this is a big, huge island. The whole park is built on sand dunes, and you won't believe it when you're there. And so when I finished, I looked up and discovered my class had disappeared. So I had to run and find them. And so I thought I would improve the painting and see if I could do a better...
If you've gotten better.
And? I think it's better now. Good. But there were duckies in there, and I just had fun. It's just childhood memory that made me happy thinking about it.
I love that the memory is so old.
So it's kind of a few years ago.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Becky?
And I work very quickly. I cannot spend any time. I like to get it done in that afternoon or evening or whatever, or if I'm out sketching.
Yeah.
It's just got to be quick.
Well, you need to in order to be plein air.
Yeah. Playful,
Yeah.
I think, in the moment.
Yeah, and that's one thing that watercolor is very good for.
Yeah.
Fast. I'm going to invite Craig to speak, unless there's somebody else who I've missed. Or if there's something else we want to talk about. One moment. Hi, Craig.
Oh,
Do you want to talk to us about your work?
Oh, no.
Please?
I beg your pardon?
Please? You don't want to at all?
Well, I'm not quite sure what to think about.
I'll ask you questions.
Okay.
Yeah?
Even worse.
Your timing is bad then. Okay. Now, many of you who have been with, can you come here?
Don't put it over there.
Yeah, in front of the work.
Yeah. Okay.
Many of you who have been part of our community for a long time are familiar with Craig Milliken's work, even though it's evolved a lot over 40, 50 years, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you started out as an architect, a landscape architect.
Yeah.
And then sculptor, photographer.
Yeah, I've done a little bit of different things.
Yeah. And now we do these really
Mandalas.
repetitive mandalas, correct? Yeah. So tell me about your process with these.
Okay, well, I use a light table. They may be more complex to do than they are, but it's 4 sheets. They make up a mandala. And I do the drawing 1 portrait, the drawing on tracing paper, and then I put good quality paper over it and trace it. And I do that 4 times, rotating it around. So it's a mirror image that keeps repeating.
Do you have an idea of what kind of image you want it to be in the end?
Kind of evolves sometimes. Just put a couple of forms together,
Yeah.
an arc or a bar, and you can add it as you go along.
Yeah.
And it evolves. Yeah. Sometimes I have a kind of general idea.
Because a curve is so different than a straight line. That's what you
Yeah.
can see in these two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I use felt pens.
Any particular brand you want to endorse?
Well, I use Sharpie, but
Yeah.
I may branch out.
Okay. Are there any questions for Craig? Or any pressing issues of the day that we want to talk about before we wrap up? If we're done, anybody want to talk about another piece of art on the wall? You might have noticed there's some digital media as well. We have a documentary by Daria Gaida, which has stopped playing, but we'll get on that as soon as we're done here. There's also an augmented reality piece by Colton Smith in the back corner there, which has a QR code on the wall label that you can scan to make that art piece come alive. 2 different artists submitted wind chimes this year. We have Susan Abbott from Winnipeg, mailed Mom, which is this very conceptual wall sculpture that you see behind you. And again, 173 pieces this year at the member show, which is huge, and somehow it all fit in. So, okay, if there aren't any questions, we'll release you. There's tea, coffee, sweets, go. Thank you very much for coming, everybody.